Hey everybody, so glad that you guys got an extra day off. I hope that you're enjoying the snowy day outside. I'm getting ready to head out to work right now, so I wanted to make sure that I put this quick little lesson in on chapter 3 before I headed out. Make sure that by the end of today, you have chapter 3 logged in Edmodo. Most of us have gotten halfway through chapter 3, so we know that halfway through. We are looking at Candy's dog sadly getting killed by Carlson. He thinks Candy's dog stinks and he's old and he's hurting and he's not eating. So it just makes sense to put him out of his misery. And Candy won't do it. So Carlson volunteers enthusiastically. We also know that Slim is the one that's in charge of the group, or that the group respects greatly. And so as a result, Slim makes the decision, hey, yeah, that makes sense to me. The dog should be put out of his misery, and the dog has to die. As we move forward in the rest of chapter 3, there's a section that I found interesting and that I think might help you guys out. And it's really when Lennie and George are indulging really into the idea of that ranch that they someday want to own. So I'm just going to read a little segment that I thought was cool. And I hope that when you come across it, you can do more of what we practiced and really try to hear those voices in your mind so that you uh, can understand where the characters are coming from and what their points of view are as you're reading. Okay, here we go. Lennie drummed on the table with his fingers. George? Huh? George, how long's it gonna be until we get that little place and live on the fat of the land? And rabbits? I don't know, said George. We gotta get a big stake together. I know a little place we can get cheap, but they ain't giving it away. Old Candy turned slowly over. His eyes were wide open. He watched George carefully. So as I'm reading this section, what I'm noticing is up until this point, this dream of having this ranch has only been between two people. And you know who those two people are, the two main characters in the story. Now we have an extra individual who has turned slowly over, and it says he's watching George very carefully. So these two gentlemen have been really into their own thing, but we'll see now if they feel safe enough and comfortable enough to allow somebody else to be a part of this story, even though it's only just been the two of them up until now. Let's see. Lennie said, "Tell me about that place, George." "I just told you last night." "Go on. Tell again, George." "Well, it's 10 acres, said George. Got a little windmill, got a little shack on it, and a chicken run. Got a kitchen, orchard, cherries, apples, peaches, cots, nuts, a few berries. Cots are apricots. There's a place for alfalfa and plenty of water to flood it. There's a pig pen and rabbits, George. No place for rabbits now, but I could easily build a few hutches and you could feed alfalfa to the rabbits." So it looks like now George and Lennie are continuing to have this conversation about their ranch, even though there's somebody else that's in the room with them that can hear their story. So let's see how this continues. George's hands stopped working with the cards. His voice was growing warmer. "And we could have a few pigs. I could build a smokehouse like the one Grandpa had, and when we kill a pig, we can smoke the bacon and hams and make sausage and all like that. And when the salmon run upriver, we could catch 100 of them and salt them down or smoke them. We could have them for breakfast. They ain't nothing so nice as smoked salmon. When the fruit come in, we could can it, and tomatoes, they are easy to can. Every Sunday we could kill a chicken or a rabbit. Maybe we'd have a cow or a goat, and the cream is so thick you got to cut it with a knife and take it out with a spoon." Lennie watched him with wide eyes, and old Candy watched him too. Lennie said softly. We could live off the fat of the land. Sure, said George. All kinds of vegetables in the garden, and if we want a little whiskey, we can sell a few eggs or something, or some milk. We just live there. We belong there. There wouldn't be no more running around the country and getting fed by a cook. No, sir. We'd have our own place where we belong and not sleep in no bunkhouse. Tell about the house, George, Lennie begged. Sure, we'd have a little house and a room to ourselves, a little fat iron stove, and in the winter we keep a fire going in it. It ain't enough land, so we'd have to work too hard. Maybe 6, 7 hours a day. We wouldn't have to buck no barley 11 hours a day. And when we put in the crop, why, we'd be there to take the crop up. We'd know what come of our planting. And rabbits, Lennie said eagerly. And I'd take care of them. Tell how I'd do that, George. Sure. You go out in the alfalfa patch and you'd have a sack, and you fill up the sack and bring it in and put it in the rabbit cages. They'd nibble, said Lennie, the way they do. I seen them. So it looks like the guys continue on with the story about how they're going to have this ranch and how they're going to really enjoy themselves. And not just that, but they're gonna have someplace stable, someplace to call their home. You heard George talk about how they would know what comes of their crops. And he says that because now you know that they're traveling from place to place to place. So they might be there for a harvest season or a planting season, but they don't ever really stay for more than one of those seasons. So if they plant something, they've never seen the crops come up. When they harvest, they're harvesting something someone else has planted. So now they're talking about having a place their own that all could be their work. We get to a point in this conversation where George and Lennie get so caught up. This happens. Let's listen. It says, George sat entranced with his own picture. That means with his own idea of what was going to happen. When Candy spoke, they both jumped as though they had been caught doing something reprehensible. Candy said, You know where there's a place like that? So it looks like as we're reading, there might be somebody else that's going to be coming into their dream, their hope. As you read the rest of chapter 3, I'm really interested to find out what you find out. Email me, leave me a message here on this channel, or I just look forward to reading your responses in Edmodo. Okay, guys, make sure that you finish reading chapter 3 by the end of today. Tomorrow, when you come into class, we start on chapter 4. Thanks.